Welcome to this episode of Listen to Your Coaches. I'm your coach, Mike Wilkins, here with Coach Will Morrill. And as you can tell, we're in a different setting today. We're on a road trip. We're out in the Poconos for Brittany Bickhart's pro debut. And we got a real fitting subject that really fits the vibe of this weekend. All right, Will, so why don't you bring us in, tell the good people what we're going to be discussing today.
So today we're going to talk about what it's like fighting on the road versus fighting at home, things you need to consider, how it changes between different levels of MMA, and maybe some inside tips that'll help you out if you find yourself in this situation.
Yes, absolutely. So where I think I'd like to start is let's kind of start at that early stage, the amateur level. Now, I would say that the majority of our amateur fighters debut in what we would call like a local fight, right? Something like within the hour and a half type
drive, yeah.
To where like you're probably not spending the night.
Right, exactly. And you can still cut weight like at the home gym, and then just drive out there.
So that would be considered at home.
Yeah, we'll still consider that at home. So what we're going to consider away being like, what do we want to call it? You have to spend the night there kind of type of deal?
You likely probably should be spending the night there.
Yeah.
If you're not, it's because you're just like getting extra tough and trying to save a few bucks.
Yeah. Or you just really want to get home.
We might not be spending the night there as the coaches. For example, even fights in Philadelphia. Is, a good 5-hour drive for us. We've been known to be like, all right, we're out of here.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, just 2-3 weeks ago, I was in Kentucky. Had the hotel room ready to go, and I found out none of the fighters were staying. I was like, well, I'm not staying here.
Yeah, so what, you
shot
did,
home.
like 5-hour drive home, right after an event.
That was brutal. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you're fighting away from home. You're going to have to make weight most likely away from home or have to stay in the car. We can kind of talk about that on weight. And most likely stay over and, you're out of your own hometown.
Right, yes.
So, Mike, I am a 3-fight amateur. And I'm finally at the level where, maybe an organization I fought for wants to offer me a title fight or there's an opponent that I really want to fight, but they're 2 states over.
Yes.
I'm obviously new to the game, 3 fights under my belt. What do I have to know about this?
I mean, you got to plan your logistics. First off, are your coaches able and willing to make that travel with you? Because your coaches are making a sacrifice in this for you as well. Like for an example, if I'm traveling and I need an overnight, right? Well, you know what I mean? That's something that takes it's not a day away from me, not just a day away from my family for me, but that's a sacrifice my family is making for you as well.
Exactly.
So you got to kind of consider that in which the level that you're fighting at. You know what I mean? Are there fights readily available for you in a more convenient area?
Right. Right.
That's definitely something to take into consideration.
Yeah. So why are you trying to go 5 hours away?
Right. So if you're going 5 hours away, it should likely be for something you can't get here at home.
Exactly.
Right. A unique opportunity, a unique opponent. Perhaps you're difficult to. Maybe you're very good.
You might be the tough one, and you just can't get anyone.
Right. For example, when Brittany was an amateur, I'd be willing to travel very far for her fights because, at the current state of women's amateur mixed martial arts, it might be hard to find these fights. So, you got to make those travels. We also might see that at outlier men's weight classes,
right?
Super heavyweight, heavyweight. I don't even think it exists in Pennsylvania.
Right, exactly. We got to go somewhere else.
You got to go to Ohio to fight super heavyweight and things like that. So those are some things to consider. But let's say you checked off all those boxes and it's time to travel. Your logistics, all right? How early do you need to be there, and what are your requirements you need to meet for your fight? That we'll probably get into a little later, the extra stuff. So we're talking amateur. You likely just need to be there to weigh in, fight, and that's it, right? So you're probably looking at 2 nights in a hotel room, right? Assuming your weigh-ins are day of, all right, let's just go day of weigh-ins. Well, you're going to need to be there the night before,
right?
You're not going to want to drive those 4 hours sucked down on weight to get to weigh-ins, you know, in the morning of weigh-ins. So you're likely going to drive there the night before, stay a night in a hotel. You're going to need to know where you're going to make your cut at, right? Like
That's
search a
super
local,
important.
The most important. You're searching around. Maybe the hotel that you're staying at has a hot tub and you do a hot tub cut. Maybe the hotel, you're checking your hotel room, seeing, is it shower only? Or are there bathtubs in the bathroom? That's a big deal for MMA fighters, right? And then, like, because you might be using the tub for your cut. Maybe you're looking for like an LA Fitness style gym locally to like buy a day pass at, use their sauna, steam room, hot tub. However you typically cut weight, you got to get that figured out, and that needs to be figured out like around the time you sign the contract.
And I think another important thing about this is kind of, you mentioned this, like in terms of like why is it even, why are you even like going away to fight, is well, you shouldn't probably be traveling for your first fight unless you're one of those weird outliers.
Right, like Brittany, we fought in Philadelphia for her first fight because it's like
she's an outlier.
It was hard to catch a fight, and it was coming off of the end of COVID. So
exactly.
Like, yeah, fights
we didn't have a lot of
opportunities.
opportunities, and good organization, all that kind of stuff.
I was in CFFC, which is an organization that holds a lot of value to us.
But another reason that you probably shouldn't travel for your first fight is, do you even know how you cut weight? You know what I mean? Like, have you experimented with a sauna? Have you experimented with a hot tub? Do you know how to get a regular tub hot enough, right? And again, just knowing some of the tricks and how your body responds to weight cutting, super, super important to have that dialed in before you go and try to do it in an environment you might not be comfortable in, that you can't control all the variables in the same way that you could at home.
Different people cut weight differently. Like, and we're talking about cutting weight the right way, and this may be for a different podcast.
To dive into the details, for sure.
Dive into the details of it, but just to like touch on the surface, let's use just two people, for example, from the old school fight team. Myself, I think I'm a good example, and we'll use Vince Meng. Okay?
Fantastic.
The reason I'm picking us is because we're stark differences on our weight cut. I'm a hot tub guy, right?
Yes.
You put me in a hot tub, I'm cutting weight easy. I would spend certain amount of sessions in, like I'm 20 minutes in, 10 minutes out, 20 minutes in, 15 minutes out. And like I go from 172 to 155 in the matter of a morning.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the matter of a morning, probably taking some more extended breaks at some point in time. You put Vince in that same water with me and he's not losing much.
Yeah.
He just does not respond well to that. So where do you got to put? You put Vince in the hot box.
And there's also like your tolerance to the sauna. You know what I mean? Like, I can sit in a hot tub all day, but you put me in a sauna. With the hot tub, you might have some adverse reaction. Again, this might be getting a little out of line, but like, you know what? We will save that for another podcast. But just know, like, certain people don't react to certain things well. I had to do a hot tub cut, I had to do a sauna cut for one fight, and you famously talk about it being a heartbreaking experience for you. It really was. It really was.
Yeah, so it's got.
And also, on top of that, just to like explain how tough Mike was back in the day, I couldn't even stay in as long as he was, and I was drinking water the whole time.
Yeah, like that mentally helped me, to be honest with you, because like, not that you guys were breaking, but you and
I was breaking.
You and AJ were like, I need like one, like you would take turns, right? And I was just like in there, like knowing that I'm more dehydrated, I'm further down through, because when you guys are getting out, like you're not like doing it in front of me, which I wouldn't have cared, but like you're like like trying to bring yourself back to a place where you can, and that's what you should do.
Yeah.
Because you need to be of assistance to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't have you, like we can't have you being depleted and maybe needing help. It's about the fight.
Right, yeah, I can't.
So coaches should stay hydrated and should stay, mentally sharp. It's not like I'm going to suffer with my, no, you stay well fed, you stay hydrated. You don't suffer with your fighter. You stay there as the best tool that you can be for that fighter. You don't start to bring that down. But it did in my head. I was like, like I'm in here, I'm breaking everyone.
Yeah.
I'm breaking everyone. But like I don't respond well to the sauna because I just like breathe in the hot air. Like it would get me panicky.
Yeah.
Whereas with my head out in the hot tub, and it's easy to adjust and stay. Again, we're getting off topic.
Yeah. We're gonna move on. knowing how you like to cut weight is going to be important because that's going to, affect your accommodations. If you're a tub guy and you can only find a hotel that only has showers and the only hot tub in the area is like half an hour away, well, you need to factor that into your schedule. Are you going to be able to make it out a half hour? Are you going to be able to then make it back in time?
Does this place offer day passes?
Right, yeah, exactly. And, is that worth it for you?
Yeah.
So, again, that's just one factor to consider.
Right, and like at home, you likely already have like your situation. If you're I'm a fighter out of our gym, we have a sauna at 3 of our 4 locations. A lot of fighters are liking to use the sauna system. Those who do like the tubs, we are very familiar with where hot tubs are around in and around the city. Me personally, my mother has a hot tub, so we sometimes can go use that and things of that nature. So it's a lot easier at home. And then what happens after you cut weight?
Well, then you have to go weigh in.
You have to go weigh in, you make weight, and then you need a plan on your rehydration and refueling.
Exactly.
Right? Now, the plan on rehydration and refueling, that changes depending on the weigh-in. Was it day before weigh-in? Was it day of weigh-in? We're right now using the idea that it's day of because, like Ohio is day of for amateurs. So you got to have your plan. You got to have your stuff with you, your groceries with you, and whatever you like to refuel yourself. If you have a particular thing you like to eat, maybe a particular restaurant you like to go to, this is where I think I come in a little bit unique here. Like my go-to, like obviously we wouldn't go straight there. We would like rehydrate with some Pedialyte, some water,
pickles,
and things like that, and kind of get to like a
comfortable point,
before going to eat, right? But then we would go to Applebee's. Now,
and that would be
a lot of people like it's like a big joke, and it's like an inside joke, kind of an outside joke too. At our gym, I once actually got sponsored by Applebee's. Right? They were a good sponsor for a couple fights there. But like, why? Why would I choose to go to like a chain restaurant? Why? Well, like
consistency,
right? You know what I mean? I am not opposed to going to like somewhere, like you're out of town, right? Like you want to go to eat somewhere you can't eat back at home, right? So I'm not opposed to that, but like, do you want to venture outside of your like comfort zone in such an important moment?
Right.
Like if you don't
you try something new, it doesn't sit well with you, that's not the time you want to be playing with it.
Right. So it's just like, dude, like, every Applebee's has the same menu. I'm getting that 2 for $20. Like I'm either splitting it with you or splitting it with AJ, and I'm getting the steak, the mashed potatoes, the broccoli with the house salad. Like that's it, dude. I'm running the same game plan, and it wasn't out of superstition, right? No, it was out of just
practicality.
Like practicality. And if I was at home, guess what I didn't do? I didn't go to Applebee's.
Right? Yeah.
No, I ate at home.
Yeah.
I made that food at home.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like Applebee's was the thing, like, oh yeah, this is where you gotta go. No, it was just like, all right, I'm in a hotel room. How am I gonna cook this steak, broccoli, mashed potatoes, blah 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 blah, things of that nature. And I'm not saying that's also the food that you need to be eating. Certain people like pasta, chicken,
rice,
things of that nature, rice,
whatever.
Yeah, it's all whatever.
Another thing I think is really important too about what you're saying is like you should have at least like more food than you think is necessary. I've seen guys show up to weigh-ins and they just have a bottle of water, and it's like, okay, first of all, that's not the right thing to rehydrate with.
No.
Secondly, let's say you finish that bottle of water and they're like, hey, by the way, we need you to stick around to maybe see a doctor, fill out some forms. Can you wait till the end? We just dealt with this. We were like, oh, we got to wait till the end. We're going to look over your contract. Ended up not needing to do that anyways. But like, you might be stuck in that weigh-in area for hours more than you think. So if you're supposed to weigh in at like 3, you might still be there at 4:30.
And if you're like, oh, my stuff's back at the hotel. Like,
right. And especially if you're weighing in the same venue. So like you're supposed to weigh in at 3 and you're like, oh, cool, I got plenty of time. Check-in's at 5. Well, if you're there till 4:30, now you have half an hour. And if you didn't have any food or anything with you, now you're scrambling to do that. You're stressed at a time you shouldn't be stressed. And again, just like taking away that consistency in a time where things should be consistent. So have plans for your weight cutting and your rehydration and like eating afterwards. And again, right now we're just talking about like, you know, like lower levels, you know, early amateurs, stuff like that. And things will change a little bit in pros. But that overall, you know, concept is still the same. You got to have a plan.
Yeah, and it's part of the plan, something that I thought would go without saying, right? Have your rides.
Dude.
Have your rides. Again, like it was probably the first thing we should have said, but of course we didn't say it first. Why? Yeah, why did you forget about it? Because it's obvious, and we assume. We assume you have a ride, all right? And what happens when you assume? You make an ass out of you and me, right?
And we've run into that situation before where a fighter is like, you know, we're like gearing up to leave, and they're like, hey, can I get a ride? And we're like, dude, imagine if we couldn't. Like,
yeah.
So have your ride set up.
Have your ride set up. And this is not, like, have it set up well before.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, get a ride set up Thursday for Friday. No, like get a ride set up like
2 weeks.
2 weeks, a month before.
Yeah.
You know who's going to be your buddy, your weight cut buddy, things of that nature. And there may be some instances where your weight cut buddy is your coach.
Yeah.
Right? Like we might get into that.
Well, it also depends on like team size and stuff. Like we have a massive team. We cannot cut weight with every one of our fighters. Like we would spend every waking second with them. But
I will not. We already make so much, dude. Like you guys who listen to this podcast, if you're listening to it now, you probably know us personally. Unless you're looking back at this episode from hopefully like years from now or a year from now or whatever, people will be watching these podcasts and maybe they like it and they're like, oh, let me go look at some of the earlier episodes. So maybe you don't know me,
right?
But if you're watching this as of airtime, you probably know me pretty well. I'm not cutting weight with you, right? That's all there is to it. I already, like, we talk about our fight schedule, right? Like, okay, just in the past 6 weeks, we've spent 5 weekends at fights, right?
I spent 6 of them, right?
Yeah. Well, no, you spent 6.
Yeah.
You spent 6. I spent 4 because I got some pneumonias. And you're off next weekend. I'm not, dude. I'm in Vegas next weekend, which I'm not going to complain about. I'm pretty pumped to be going to Vegas next weekend. But yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of sacrifice there, right? So, like, I'm not going to be with you Friday morning cutting weight all day Friday. First off, like, you know, like we probably got some practices to run, you know, and you're already pulling me away from my young family. Like here, like I'm already making those sacrifices. You got to have your teammates, your buddies, right? Now, when am I cutting weight with you? When am I cutting weight with you? Later on, dude.
Exactly.
Later on.
Pros.
Because when you're a pro, and it's not like pros like, oh, you're a pro now you get my extra time. No, it's like, oh, you're a pro now. We're probably out of town in which
we're all going together.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So, like, for example, right now, we're in the Poconos in Tannersville, Pennsylvania. It's you, me, Coach Ryan, 3K, and Brittany, right? So who's your weight cut buddy? Us. You know?
And we all hopped in the hot tub together.
If this fight was in Pittsburgh, right? Let's say, like, her December 247 fight went through.
Right.
There were plans.
Yeah.
There were plans in place before that fight fell through. And those plans did not involve us cutting weight. Questions about how to cut weight, answers for that, advice for that, readily available.
Yep.
But we weren't going to be in that hot tub, brother. We weren't going to be in that sauna, you know? Things like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you got... Now, this could be different depending the size of your team. Perhaps you're a smaller team. Like we have been a smaller team in the past, you know? Like 4 or 5 fighters... Maybe the coach is the buddy.
Yeah.
You know? And honestly, if we were a team of 4 or 5 fighters, we probably would be the buddy because we wouldn't have been gone for 5 weekends in a row.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Out of town.
Yeah.
For fights, right? So, like, you know, it's less of a sacrifice. It's just you.
So while we're still on the subject of like weight cutting, packing wise, what are some important things that you might not think about?
All right, so how are you cutting? Are you cutting in the sauna or are you cutting in the hot tub? All right, managing that. If you're cutting in the sauna, likely when you step out of the sauna, you're going burrito mode. So you need your sauna suit, your sweats, unless you want to pack a million towels, probably some blankets.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Right? You know what I mean? And you're gonna think about like how many sessions you're gonna need to do. Do you have access to laundry? Likely not. So you're probably gonna need to pack multiple weight cut kits, right? So multiple of those like sweats and stuff like that, because they're gonna get gross.
And maybe some extra plastics if you show up and you're
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I showed up to every single weigh-in that had a distance between where we were staying. So there were times where I fought where, for example, I fought in the Borgata in Atlantic City, in which our hotel room was in the same building as the weigh-in, which was in the same building as the fight, right? So I did not bring my sauna suit with me to the weigh-ins because we were still in the same building. It would be like, oh, I left my sauna suit upstairs in the bedroom right here. Like I could just run up and get it. I don't have to drive somewhere to get it. But like I brought it every other weigh-in, I had it with me just in case. What if you step on your scale, you're on weight, you step on their scale and you're 0.2 over and you got to go rip some weight off real quick. Be prepared. Be prepared.
And you said something else important there. You need a scale.
Oh my goodness.
Like
again, an assumption. An assumption on my end.
Right now, we are in this Airbnb, which is 4.5 hours away from home. And if we didn't have a scale, we're just guessing.
You're just guessing. Honestly, what I would imagine any sane individual would do would be, where's the nearest Walmart?
Right,
I'm
get a scale.
go buy one.
But keep in mind, like a scale you just buy from Walmart could be plus or minus 4 pounds.
I mean, if you're a fighter who's traveling the fight, you're probably pretty invested in your career, right? You should probably invest in a fairly decent scale, right? Like, I mean, how expensive are scales anyhow? Like, if you drop $100 on a scale, and I'm pretty sure the scale we have here is like a $70 scale. If you drop $100 on a scale, like that scale's gonna, it's worth it. It's worth it.
By far.
Yeah. You
By
gotta
far.
know. Yeah.
So you got to have your weight cut equipment. You've got to have your scale. If you have the opportunity to test it against the other scale, sometimes you'll get the chance to like check it out the night before or something.
So maybe are we in a position to be moving to that though right now? Because that's good information about like, because that also gives you a dive deep, a little insight into what the next levels are like. Because a lot of the amateur fighters that we're coaching, they don't know what those levels are like, right? We've lived them, so we know. But it's not like we're out there saying like, oh, hey guys, this is what it's like in the CFFC. This is what it's like in the LFA. This is what it's like in Bellator.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Let's move on to that then.
All right. So, we're off. Like, I think we covered a lot of the logistics of fighting out of town, like at that lower amateur level. And I would say if you're fighting out of town with the day before weigh-ins, what you're doing is you're adding an extra night stay, right? So everything just kind of gets elongated out. Instead of fighting that night of the weigh-in, you now have hit your recovery, your rehydration. You get one more sleep in your hotel room, and the next day you're chilling out, meeting any media obligations you may have, seeing the doctor at whatever time they determine.
Signing posters.
Yeah, stuff like that, which we're going to get into here before your fight. So it just extends your stay one day, right? Yeah, so now let's move on. Now we're like at the professional level. We're traveling.
A little higher level.
So let's use this fight for an example right now. I feel like this is that level. Brittany's making her pro debut. It's out of town, as I said, in the Poconos, which was about a 4.5 hour drive for us. And there was an option for a hotel room. Right? Like the promotion provided 3-night stay hotel. Okay? Which is good because understanding that we need 3 nights. We need 3 nights because we are 4.5 hours away. Her weigh-ins are at 3 p.m. We're just at 3 p.m. We're not going to drive. We're not going to leave Pittsburgh at 10:30 a.m. on way and drive here.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's not going to happen. So your weight cut's going to happen here, as we said. So we need to be here the night before so we can cut weight here. All right? So that's a Thursday night stay. Today is Friday, so we're staying Friday night, and she'll fight Saturday night. We're not going to We're not driving 4.5 hours home from this one, but I would consider that.
Yeah, we certainly have.
yeah. But we're going to stay on this one. So we would need at least 2 nights, but it's always good to have that third night because you don't know what's going to happen in the fight and like how you're going to feel after the fight, how late the fights are going to go, things of that nature. All right, so what is different?
Well, hold on. I think you said something important here. Is the promotion offered a hotel room?
Oh yes, so
but that
this
didn't
is like,
fit what we needed.
Well, we're not in a hotel, as you can tell, so that didn't fit our needs. A little bit of a perhaps like a different situation. Now we're talking about like male and female fights, right? Like perhaps we wouldn't have, but perhaps you elect to stay in the hotel room, right? Also, you got to see like what kind of a hotel it is, and we'll talk about like the next level up from here and how that does change things. But like there's 4 of us, a hotel room's 2 queen beds, right? Brittany's a nice lady, you know what I mean? We're not staying in the same room as her, you know what I mean? And we're in the position now where like we're not young, like young broke, like as broke, we're not young as broke, like you know what I mean, like we're in a position to where like, dude, like I'm never gonna sleep on a floor again. Like I'm in my mid 30s, like I'll find my own room, like, you know what I mean? So the Airbnb route made sense for us. We could all stay together in one roof. All of us have our own bed. And a particular thing we have in this Airbnb, Will, what is it?
Hot tub.
We have our own hot tub in which we used very successfully to have a very easy,
comfortable,
enjoyable weight cut, right? So yeah, just like a really great amenity. And like, if we did not have that, we're looking for like an LA Fitness, things of that, and we would have that all under control. But we got this Airbnb booked well ahead of time. Everything's set, and the weight cut went really smooth.
Yeah.
We went grocery shopping. Ryan 3K is gonna whip up a really good, healthy dinner for us with a really good, that really suits Brittany's like refueling.
Yeah.
And it's very enjoyable for us. We have a full fridge full of beer for the coaching staff.
And I think that's important too, is that like, it's not just like, do you have the correct amenities, but also is the vibe right for your team? So like, we are pretty like laid back. We're chill. We try to have a good time. We're not like super intense. We're not like, yo, we're here to fight. Let's focus on that the whole time. No, this is what we love to do. You know what I mean? And so like, we want to reflect that in the vibe, and we want Brittany to feel comfortable, and we want to just like have a good time while we're here. So again, this Airbnb made a lot of sense because it checked all of those boxes. We had our weight cutting, we had like, our accommodations and just like where we're sleeping under control. Food is now under control as well. And it just, it fits perfectly. And again, everything should kind of boil down to like, is it making the fighter feel comfortable?
Yes.
Right? Do we have the correct vibes?
Yeah, the vibes, and it's working in making everything as easy and seamless as possible, as stress-free as possible. So, for example, like it is on the fighter to make this happen. You don't rely on your coaches to make this happen. But in certain situations, right, like this is an area in which you can lean on your coach, knowing, like if you know your coach, like, if your coach has even more responsibilities than we have, maybe you should take care of it yourself. For example, in my career, I took care of everything, right? Maybe a little bit of a different dynamic, right? Will, who was my coach, I'm older than him. So like it's like one of those things like I'll do, I was kind of like the leader.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And Warren was the kind of coach who he was like, I'll be there at the fight.
Yeah. I'll be there before you get in the cage.
Yeah. We're not going to hang out for 3 days. He's like, I'm going to let you, Will, and AJ do that stuff.
Yeah.
What time do I need to be there on fight?
Right.
Type of thing. And then we'll have some fun after the fight and stuff like that. But
now, something that I think is important, especially at higher levels. For example, we could look at like Farman's fight.
That's where I wanted to go next.
Got you. So, do you have anything else you want to talk about with this?
No, I mean, like, and a lot of it is very similar to what we talked about for the out-of-town amateur fight. There's not much difference here, except you probably have more money to play with. So we opted out of the hotel, as we said, and the promoter was willing to give us the equivalent of what the hotel stay would have been. So we took that money to add to what the cost of the Airbnb was. Didn't cover the Airbnb. We didn't expect it to cover the Airbnb. That's quite an ask. Maybe if we were like had a little bit more like sway, you know, we could have asked for something like that. But you know,
it was well worth it.
It was well worth it, and everything's working out like really well with it. So moving on to like a fight like the next level.
Right.
So like we're at like right now this is like regional level pro.
Yeah.
Yeah, regional level pro. And then we're talking about the next level up, which is your LFA, your CFFC, Furies, things like that. Like, you know, the fights that you guys know that are like, it's like, okay, their champions are going to the UFC next, you know? I'm sure, I mean, there's others out there.
Right,
But like, you know, those are the ones that I've actually, you know, been involved in. So I'm going to use those. So let's use the most recent one. Just a month ago today, we were in Niagara Falls at the Seneca Resort and Casino for Farmon's LFA fight, right? And a very comfortable experience, very familiar experience for us because it very much mimicked a lot of the end of my pro career.
Right, and so we're in a situation where we're in a hotel, which is also a casino, which is also where the weigh-ins are.
Which is also where the fight is.
Exactly.
Right?
So
like
you have this
all,
like
if we didn't want to go outside, we didn't have to go outside. We walked through the doors of the Seneca, and other than like we wanted to go like get some fresh air and like walk around, we walked to the falls and stuff like that. But like you did not have to go outside.
Right. It's a self-contained unit.
You showed up. We showed up Wednesday night. We could have walked out Saturday morning. Just never first time seeing daylight. You know? So like obviously we're not going to get an Airbnb in that situation because the convenience of staying at the event is incredible. Huge. It is incredible. It is the best situation.
And I think that one of the really important things you should do as soon as you possibly can, most of these higher level organizations, they're going to have a test scale out really early.
This is big.
And you should still have your own scale because like you don't want to cut and then go to the test scale and blah, 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 and go back and forth.
And also, is the test scale going to be available? The test scale for LFA, so we arrived at LFA Wednesday afternoon. Check-in was at like 4 p.m. and it was my goal to get us there like right near check-in. You know, like not having to fight any traffic and like having like all the time in the world to figure out the schedule and what's going on. So we arrived Wednesday afternoon. We check into the room. Farman had his own room, which if you're able to pull that off, that's great. We'll contrast that to younger versions. Like, for example, when I was fighting in the CFFC, we're dealing with the same exact situation. Let's use the Borgata, which was one of my favorite places to fight. We weren't in a position to be getting our own rooms.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? Now we're a little older, a little more, you know, like
stable
in life. So Farman had his own room, and Will and I got a room, right? And it was really nice that way. We could still enjoy the trip, like, you know what I mean? Because like that's one of the things. Like, you should be enjoying this.
Yes, it's
this
supposed
should
to be
an enjoyable time. Like, it should be fun for everybody, including the fighter. But like, you know, it's going to be fun for the coaches, right? So this way, you know, if we're out a little bit later, you know, we're not going to come in and disturb the fighter.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But we have easy access to him, right? He was on floor 10. We were on floor 18. Dude, we were in an elevator right away. You know, we had a room key to his room in case we needed to go get him. Like, you know what I mean? In case he wasn't waking up and we're banging on the door, get in there. And things like that. Excuse me. So the test scale was available from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Wednesday night. So depending on how you're cutting your weight, where you're cutting your weight, what you're doing to cut your weight, you want to be able to like know what your weight is as it progresses. So the difference between that and like, for example, Brittany's fight, who we are at right now, is we're using the scale that we brought and we're just going to assume that it is accurate, right? And maybe you play it safe. For example, we played it safe and we got her a pound under, just in case there was some deviations in the scale. There was some deviations in the scale in which our scale was a pound heavier, so she ended up weighing in 2 pounds under. That was not a problem for this fight, as the weight cut was not a struggle in the slightest. But if you have access to the official scale and you can get that real number, that's great. You go to it.
Go and calibrate against your own.
Calibrate it against your scale. Bring your scale down, set it next to that scale, and see, and be like, okay, my scale is 0.6 heavy.
I think it's actually better to leave it in one spot and not move it, because if you move certain scales, they will they can be slightly different on different surfaces. I think what you should do is stick your scale in your hotel room somewhere,
pick your spot where it's not going to get bumped, not going to get kicked.
Get on your scale, get an exact weight, go down immediately.
Immediately,
same clothes, nothing different.
As fast as you can get there. Not a sip of water, not a stick of gum. Not that would make a difference, but you know what I mean? Just boom. And it's going to tell you, you're going to be like, okay, it's 0.8 difference. It's 0.6 difference. That way you now have access the entirety of your weight cut, so you can manage it however you want.
So that way, let's say that the scale is only available till 10. What if your weight cut is taking a little extra long and you're not done cutting until 10:30? Well, guess what? You can still get an accurate weight because you now have it calibrated against the official scale. So that's one of those things that, again, seems like common sense, but you should get that done as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so again, a lot of the same stuff, though. You always need your rehydration plan. You always need your meal plan, things like that, your weight cut plan. A really nice thing about these casino resort event centers is they all have a spa, and stuff like that, into which those spas typically have everything you're going to need, right? They likely have steam room, sauna, and whirlpool hot tub. In our instance with Vermont, we had to be extra diligent about it because the spa was off limits for the fighters due to past transgressions.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess there were incidents where the fighters were very rude to the spa staff, probably being messy and stuff, just unacceptable stuff. So the spa is actually off limits, and I knew that from Brittany was supposed to fight for LFA, and her opponent had dropped out the week of the fight, but that was a Niagara Falls one as well. So I knew that at the Seneca, that was not available as of September. So this is now impacted. I don't know how long that's been in effect, but it is impacted now at least at the very minimum a half a year of fighting. Right. So, it's not like it just happened like this time. Time did not heal these wounds.
Right.
But luckily, the swimming pool had 2 hot tubs, and we used the hot tub to cut the weight.
Which we got lucky, but it's not like we were relying on luck. Mike had already found.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah, Mike had already found an LA Fitness type deal that was
they had
10 minutes away,
which is the same.
Right.
It's like the same thing as
LA
Fitness.
We were prepared way ahead of time for worst case.
Not only that, but I had called ahead, make sure that they also did day passes, made sure that their whirlpool hot tub was active, make sure they also had a sauna. Something to think about in our situation that we are in right now. If we were to need to go use an LA Fitness type gym with Brittany, is she a tub cutter or is she a sauna cutter? And that's important to know, because in that type of situation, the whirlpool is out by the swimming pool, which means there's co-ed access. The saunas are in the locker rooms, separated by men's and women's locker room. So if she was a sauna cutter and we go to this LA Fitness, good luck, champ. You're in there by yourself.
Which, by the way, you should never do.
Yes, which you should never do. And in an instance like that, we would be so planned ahead that we actually already had a plan that Claire Butterfield would have come with us and been her. If we knew, hey, we're going to have to cut at, an LA Fitness. She's a sauna cutter. So we would have brought, another female with us to be her helper with that weight cut. And we had it lined up. Claire was like, yeah. I'll do it with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, again, pre-planning. We're prepared for all these certain, instances that can occur. And how do we know that these things can occur? Experience.
We've lived it.
We've lived it. Experiences. You know what I mean? showing up to a hotel, be like, oh, I'm going to use the bathtub to cut weight, and it's like, there's no bathtub in this hotel room. It's just shower, you know? Like, and now you're in a rock and a hard spot. You're like, oh, I'm going to go to this gym. You get there. Turns out it's been closed for 2 years. Turns out they don't do day passes. Turns out their whirlpool's down this week.
Yeah, their sauna only gets to, 120 degrees or something.
Yep. What restaurants are in the area, things of that nature. Like, oh, dude, there's not an Applebee's within 30 minutes. It's like, all right, well, what's like kind of close? Texas Roadhouse? All right, there we go. Like, you know what I mean? Things of that nature. Having all those things under control. Fight kits. That's what I want to get onto next. Responsibility.
Yeah, but we take care of it, but like
don't
assume that your coach will. Like maybe
we will. Stout PTH fighters, you're good.
Most likely the people watching this are like our fighters. But again, let's say someone happens to catch this who's not. Don't rely on your coach. Your coach might not be prepared for that. Maybe that's just like not part of what they do. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they're a newer coach or something. But make sure that you have hand wrap supplies.
Yep, you got your gauze, you got your tape, you got your ice bag, you got your bucket, you got your Vaseline, you got your end swell,
And I think it's also important, you should have at least 2 pairs of wraps and especially if you're like a newer coach. What if you wrap the hands and the commissioner goes, you know what, the tape's too far here, you got to cut it off.
You're covering the knuckle. Or I need you a fingertip back.
You wrap your fighter's hands and your fighter's like,
dude, I can't feel my fingers.
Yeah, too tight. Well, if you don't have any other wraps, you're kind of screwed.
We've had that happen, right? We've had that happen with Jonas.
Yep.
I want to talk about that because that fits into this as well.
Yep.
So some unique things about those
bigger organizations,
like I wish I had a better name for them, because like regional level pro, that's like, dude, it's the minors.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like you are a step away from that next league. They oftentimes supply the kit. They supply the kit at LFA. We brought our kit just because, to be safe in case they didn't. At all the CFFC fights, the Bellator fights, they supplied everything, right? Including hand wraps.
Yep.
Meaning tape, gauze, and the person to wrap the hands. Now, we don't take advantage of the person to wrap the hands because Will happens to be exceptionally skilled at hand wraps. But when I was fighting, we did take advantage of it, and you learned a lot.
Sure did.
Right? Like, you sat there, watched me get my hands wrapped. I learned a lot. Like, I'm like, okay. You can watch YouTube videos. You can be around other people who have done it, like, senior members. Like, we could be around Bob Meese and, like, the way he wraps hands. I know that when you were out at CSA, they did a little hand wrapping thing, too. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's people with wealth of experience. Everybody who wrapped my hands at the CFFC fights, just tremendous. Years upon years of experience. Why would we not lean on that, right? So, like, at this time, I'm like, dude, like, and if you don't like it, I'll cut it off and we'll wrap it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, like, dude, like, we're in a position to learn right here. Like, we were taking advantage of it. But we were at a TKO fight in Canada for Jonas's pro debut, which was also on UFC Fight Pass. So he debuted into, like, that level. Short notice fight, up a weight class. And he's getting his hands wrapped, and they don't speaking. They were French speaking.
Canadian, yeah.
And I was under the impression that most everybody spoke both languages. This motherfucker did not.
No.
Or he pretended to not. Dude, it was the worst wrap I ever seen in my life.
What's crazy about it is we just saw him wrap someone's hands, and
it looked
good.
fine.
This dude put like 4 rolls of gauze just stacked up.
Dude, it was like you would never get a glove on. It looked
like a softball.
Yeah, it looked ridiculous. It didn't even look like a wrap. And the commissioner comes over and is like, good. And Jonas is looking at me with like deer eyes, like, well, what do we do? And the hand wrap guy like turns around, he's like, good, and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, good. And Jonas is like, oh no. And as soon as the hand wrap guy stood up, walked away, dude, I sat down in the chair. I cut those. The commissioner's like, let me sign them. I'm like, don't. I cut those suckers right off and I wrapped them.
Yep.
That was before. That was when I was the better out of the two of us. Now you have definitely taken the crown. But yeah, like I was like, I got this.
Yeah.
Like, blah, 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 blah. So like, you know what I mean? Those are some unique things that happen at that level, but you should still be prepared, you know? Like, we would never go to a CFFC fight or an LFA fight and not have our kit with us, because what if this is the time they're like, God, we're not supplying it anymore?
Dude, how about this? Just in Kentucky, there was a guy in our locker room, and he was like, hey, yeah, this is my first pro fight. I was like, oh, cool. A couple minutes later, dude comes back. He's like, hey, man, can I get some tape and gauze? Luckily, we have a ton of it. So I was like, yeah, man, sure, go for it. I'm wrapping our guys. I'm getting everyone ready. And he comes up and he goes, hey, when you're done with them, can you wrap my hands? And like, there have definitely been fights where I've gone and wrapped random people's hands just to like be cool, but I didn't have time. I was like, hey man, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get them wrapped and then I'm warming them up. So here's a dude who, pro fight, didn't have the equipment or someone there who could wrap his hands. Like, that's something else you need to consider, right?
Yeah.
You need to have the equipment and the expertise to make sure that happens. And like Mike said, all the other stuff, you need to have a bucket, you need to have your end swell, ice bag, Vaseline, towel,
Yep.
pads to get warm.
Fighters, good mouthpiece. This is mind-blowing, and it's quite frankly unacceptable, and I am mad at myself for it. I'm not gonna name any names. Fasoki. But you do not fight with a boil and bite mouthpiece, right? You shouldn't even train with a boil and bite mouthpiece. Again, if you're fighting at a certain level in which you consider yourself a serious fighter, and honestly, dude, even for your amateur debut, this should be serious enough that you get a proper mouthpiece, right? And that is not one that you're sticking in boiling water and sinking your teeth into. You got to get a fitted mold.
It should be hard to pull off.
Yeah, it should be difficult to pull off. And there are companies. There are so many companies. Like, maybe you go to your dentist. I particularly think that going to some of these other companies is probably better. Maybe your dentist gives you your mold, but let these pro mouthpiece guys make your mouthpiece, and it's not expensive. Like, if you want one with all these graphics and cool designs and logos and stuff, you're probably only looking at less than $150.
Yeah.
Right? If you're like, I'm so broke, $90 to get a plane. But it's also fitted to your mouth, and it's the only safety equipment you have.
Yes, it's the only cushioning between.
And it stays in there. It's the only cushioning. When you got a mouthpiece, it can't even fall out. It can't fall. If it gets knocked out, then you probably got knocked out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't imagine. I have to dig my mouthpiece out. Like, you're in there with that boil and bite. First off, it's not protecting you. Second off, it's a slight distraction, or at least an additional thing you have to do, like actively keeping it in. And then, like, if it falls out or you get hit with a punch, it's not even that bad, it gets knocked out. That looks horrible.
Yes.
That looks horrible. Getting a mouthpiece knocked out, it's like, oh, to the judges, it's like, oh, dude, you knocked his mouthpiece out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a braggable thing. Like, I knocked his mouthpiece out.
And then also, if there's no lull in the action, you might just eat some follow-up punches with no mouthpiece. And now, not only did you maybe get beat up and lose a fight, but now your teeth are gone. So like,
dude,
invest in a good mouthpiece.
Invest in a good mouthpiece, and it's not that much of an investment. It's, like I said, the low end, you're getting a plain, like, all white or all black one. You're looking at like $90 to $100. You want to get your sweet logos and images on there, you're maxing out at $150, $160. Like, and if you're responsible and you don't lose it, right? Like, your mouthpiece can last you like over a year. And it's the only safety equipment you have when you're in your actual competition. And guess what? It doubles for practice too.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It keeps you safe in practice. So definitely invest in a good mouthpiece.
Another thing I think fighters need to think about, so obviously you need to have like your fight shorts, cup, mouthpiece. Another thing I think fighters should consider is you might want to bring some gloves to warm up in, because let's say you're on a card and they have, let's call it, 12 fights, but they might only have 4 pairs of gloves. If you're fight number 6, and let's say
only 1 pair of mediums.
Yeah, exactly.
1 pair of larges, right? So you got to wait. Oh, I'm fight 5, but I got to wait. I'm gonna get the gloves off of the guy in fight 3.
Right.
Guess what? When fight 3's over and you get those gloves, your warm up should be done. You should just be bouncing and maintaining at that point in time.
And so you should have a pair of gloves that you can crack pads and get warm with. Otherwise, you're just kind of there and not getting warm properly. Right. So, not only do you need like the coach's fight kit, but also the fighter needs to have their supplies as well. And again, like, this is just how we do it. There might be other systems or other gyms that have their own systems where maybe the fighter supplies their own hand wraps. We used to do that. Just like make sure that you have all of those boxes checked off.
Yeah.
I think we've covered a lot of things leading up to the fight itself. Is there anything that you want to add before we move on?
Yeah, so just like other things to know is that you're going to have obligations at certain levels too. For example, when I was fighting in the CFC, when I fought in Bellator, went from home fighting in LFA, like there's media obligations, right? Like there's a schedule. So you got to know how you're going to fit your schedule. For example, we had to check in Wednesday night between 6 to 8 p.m. With them, right? That's when we learned about the check scale, how long it's going to be out, and you get some additional information. We knew weigh-ins were at 10:45 a.m. the next morning. Went, cut the weight, blah, blah, blah. Boom, weigh-ins. They told us that immediately after weigh-ins, you were going to see the doctor. So bring stuff with you. So we brought the Pedialyte, you know, a couple snacks with us for in between weigh-ins and waiting in line to see the doctor. Saw the doctor. Okay, now it's 11:30. All right, we know that his photo time is at 1 p.m. So we're like, okay, well, from 11:30 to 1 p.m., that's the time we have to like eat, right? So we go eat, we come down, photo time at 1 p.m. He's doing his face-off photos with his opponent. He's doing his like solo photos for himself for LFA future imaging, things like that. This is also time they didn't have the undercard signing posters, but you know, this would be a time which, in my experience, I would be signing posters, right? So you sit there, someone's there, rip the poster away, rip it away, rip it away. That's a great photo opportunity time. You know what I mean? I remember my first time signing posters. I felt so cool. My signature is kind of whack, but like I just go M-W line.
Scribble.
Yeah, squiggly line. But like when I was signing the posters, like it gave me like I felt great. I felt like, you know, it just like it made you feel legit, and like you were making it. At least that was in my experience. So there's a time for that. The main card for the LFA that Farman was on, and I had to do this in the CFFC as well, half-hour block. All right, co-main blue corner, you know, you're at 1:30. You have a half-hour section of where they're sitting you down. They got the ring light out, dark room, and they're like asking you questions, and they're like, okay, let's redo that one. Like, you know, filming like promo material. And like, you know what I mean? And like your session's at 1:30, your opponent's is at 2, the next fight's at 2:30, and that opponent's at 3, like, you know what I mean? So like scheduling your stuff around that, things of that nature. And I think that kind of covered that specific trip. And then it's like, all right, the next day, like, you know, report time for undercard fighters is 5. Report time for main card fighters is 7. You know, you get there knowing that also, depending on where you're fighting, different athletic commissions have different rules. So be prepared that when you show up, you don't leave that locker room again. You know what I mean? So bringing whatever you need and are allowed to bring with you, right? In almost every commission, something like this is not going to be allowed in the back. You know what I mean? So be prepared for that. Things of that nature. Not that like you should be probably drinking an energy drink before you fight, but coaches, you know, I want an energy drink. I'm getting tired. I go to sleep. You know, so like having that.
Also, you might be sitting there for hours. So like, you know, maybe you need a phone charger. Maybe you want to bring a book to chill. Maybe your fighter wants something to like rest his head on and like lay down for a little bit. You know, like these are all, again, things to consider.
Coaches, what do you want to wear while you're warming your opponent, while you're warming your fighter up? You know what I mean? I'm actually accustomed to, right now, the way we work it is we typically have many fighters on a card because we currently are fortunate enough to have a fairly large fight team at the moment. So like, you know, like me and Will are down as corners and we're cornering all 5, 6 of these fighters, but you know, they all get more corners. Guess what we need? We need people to warm people up. You know, I can't warm up 6 fighters. If I'm in the corner, I can't be warming. If I'm in there cornering, you know, Tim, I can't be warming up Lucas at that same time. I'm in the corner. Promotions have been very understanding of that, giving us passes, you know, not to abuse it, right? Like, you know, definitely not abuse, but like being like, hey, dude, we need one warm up person per fighter, you know,
at least.
And that way you have the warm up taken care of. We're able to do the jobs that we need to do of being ringside coaching, you know,
oversee what's happening in the back.
warm up. But like, you know what I mean? Like it allows the fighter to get their proper warm up in. All right. But you got one fighter on the card, brother, you're warming them up,
Yep.
right? You're warming them up. So like your attire, like I made the mistake of getting too used to not warming people up. It's time for me to wrestle with Farman doing his ground stuff. I'm wearing my, my
regular clothes.
Can't believe I don't got them on right now, but my typical tan pants.
What are they called? Oh, the chair pants.
The chair pants.
Yeah.
They, I mean, look back at every single episode. They're either green or brown, right? Those are the only 2 pants I wear. That's it. That's all I got. I go brown, green, brown, green, brown, green. That's all I got going for me. You know what I mean? I had to warm them up in my brown pants. I was like, damn. I was like, they had some like hip mobility and, they show a little ankle. I know you guys know. But like, I should have brought some like sweatpants or shorts. I'm like, dang. And he's like beating me up and stuff. I'm like, come on, dude. You're lucky I don't beat you up. You gotta fight, so I'll whoop on you. Whoop you up. Yeah. But like, those are just some things that I feel like, and this is what the heart and soul of this episode was things that you might not think about.
Yeah, and especially if, again, you're a newer fighter or you're new to whatever this level is, or maybe even a new coach. Like these are things that we've learned over the past decade plus that, hopefully you can help you.
And again, a lot of times we learned it by not having, not going the way that it should have for us and stuff. So, let our mistakes be your lessons. That's why you're here to listen to your coaches.
Have rubber gloves in your kit.
Well, so most places, they have the rubber gloves, but...
Yeah, but just have them.
We're murdered out. We go black gloves. I'm not putting on those blue, purple gloves I have in the past, so you definitely find pictures of me. But when we bring our kit, we got our own, latex rubber gloves, murdered out, black.
Look cool.
Yeah.
I have one last thing that I think is important. Do you have anything else, like leading up to the fight? So, okay, we covered most everything leading up to the fight and kind of like the fight itself. After the fight, you need to have plans for worst case scenario. Okay, so we could talk a little bit about Farman, but we could even think about something worse, right? So I think one thing is, and again, this is more for the fighters, have a ride home. Don't just be like, oh, I'll be cool, I'll just drive myself home the next day or whatever.
Oh yeah, that's not a great idea.
What if you break your hand and you literally can't hold a steering wheel? What if
you
you're
break
badly
your ankle?
Concussed?
Yeah,
and you can't focus on the road. You
can't keep your eyes above a squint because you're concussion.
Right. So like have someone to drive you home. Fighting is tough. Fighting is like a very obviously, rough sport. You might not be okay to drive yourself. So have that in mind. Also, especially if someone gets hurt in the fight and it's something where they should go to the hospital right away. So for example, Farman, he hurt his hand on his opponent's face.
Dislocated his thumb, tore every ligament in his thumb.
Mm-hmm. And so we had to send him straight to the hospital. But keep in mind, Mike and I had to shoot home because we had fights the next day that we had to.
That night.
Exactly.
I couldn't remember if we drove home that night or the next morning.
And we'd planned on going home that night because again, we had fights literally that next day.
Yeah, we had the 247 fights, Lucas's pro debut, in which we had Tyler, Joao, and Max also on the undercard.
And hopefully I should have, whenever this comes out, hopefully not too far after, I should have a cool video of that week leading up.
Yeah. I got some B-roll.
Yeah, lots of it. I'm going to smush it together and make
You should also make a funny video of me just taking panoramic videos and be like, B-roll, dude, B-roll.
The main one I want, so I have to say this because it might not make it into the main video.
Go ahead.
The main video is mostly just going to be music because the audio isn't great. But there is one fantastic clip, I just looked at it the other day, where Mike's looking at Farman, we're down at the falls, and he goes, Farman, could you swim across there? And Farman looks and he goes, that's the Canada side, right? Mike's like, yeah. And he goes, I could swim, but I don't have a visa. So probably won't do it. Dude, killer. But anyways.
That was such a good trip.
Dude, it was
That was a great trip.
For so many reasons.
I can't wait for Farman's next fight, dude. I'm so fired up.
But getting back to this situation, we got to get Farman to a hospital, but we got to get on the road because, we have a quite long drive ahead of us.
But we had a plan.
We had a plan.
And our plan was, since Warren didn't come up for all this stuff before, he had to deal with all this stuff after.
So Warren rolled right up to the front of the hotel, and we got him in Warren's car, and he took him to the hospital, and everything worked out. But
Dude,
again, these are things that in all seriousness, you need to have figured out. If your coach is like, hey, for whatever reason, I need to leave immediately after this, have someone else there who can A, drive you home, and B, maybe have to take you to the hospital because that is just the nature of the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's, That's my last important point.
Yeah, I mean, I think we covered a lot of great stuff. And guess what? I'm sure we forgot something.
We definitely did.
Or maybe we don't. Maybe we haven't experienced something. Or maybe we're assuming. Again, I have one more. Just recently, this last weekend's fights. Okay. Be in contact with your coaches. Okay, so typically what happens is you go to weigh-ins and they give you a report time to report for the fights.
Oh, yeah.
Tell your coaches.
Yeah.
No one told me when I needed to be at the fights. You know what I mean? I assumed fights start at 7, I should be there at 5. That was me assuming. I assumed correct because it's fairly standard. But sometimes, it's different.
But guess what? We're supposed to get there tomorrow? 4:30.
Yep, we know. Oh, there it is, 4:30. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Those 247 fights we were talking about, that was a suggested 4:30 arrival time. So when was I there? 4:30. You know how I knew? One of them told me. No, they didn't. All 4 of you suck. I texted Hunter. And I was like, what's report time? No, I lied. Tyler Fleming did tell me, and he told me 4:30. And I was like, that doesn't sound right. It's always 5 o'clock. So then I texted Hunter, and Hunter was like 4:30. I was like, shit.
Right on, Tyler. Good work.
Yeah, and I actually showed up on time. Yeah, dude.
I did.
And guess what? I was the only one who showed up on time out of all the coaches. I was the only one. No, Warren showed up on time. Warren, who he spent the whole night with Farmon, took him to the hospital. They went out after and got food or whatever. Warren said that they basically didn't sleep, and then they drove all the way home from Niagara Falls, and Warren still made it on time. Warren, who is notoriously late, he was there before me.
Dude,
and guess what he did? He was like, I'm leaving. He went and got food. He went to Panera. He was
That's
like, I'm
awesome.
leaving. Yeah. But he was there on time.
So again, fighters, let your coaches know. Just share the itinerary. Brittany, before this, we even left on this trip, she sent us the itinerary, which is super simple.
She received the itinerary, forwarded to the coaches.
Yeah, but it's good for us to have that information. So make sure that everyone's in connection. Have a group text. Put all the information in there. A place where you can go refer to it. That way, you're not at the Airbnb hanging out, and your fighter's trying to get a hold of you. Where's the Airbnb? They should know.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Be prepared. Be prepared. That's the bottom line. Be prepared. Because failure to prepare is preparing to fail.
Sure is.
There it is, brother. All right. Well, that's
about
it.
Yeah.
That's about it. Maybe the last piece of advice is just as you have your post-fight plans set up for, worst case scenarios, hospital visits, ways home and stuff, maybe have your post-fight plans set up for your partying.
Yeah.
Depending on if that's the vibe or not, but yeah, and don't forget, this is a game. It's fun. So let's go out there and play it. All right. Another great episode to listen to your coaches. The first one on the road, out of studio on some nice leather couches. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and we will see you next time.